Super. Lovely. So good morning. For those of you that don't know me, I'm Claire Holmes. I'm the Operations Manager for Cancer. I'm going to do some shout outs to people who are on the call, and if you can still see people, people can wave. So Alex Colhoun, who's our Clinical Director, who is hopefully waving at you all. Lovely. And Kevin Skilton, who's our Associate Ops Manager and is in charge of driving today. So we're in his hands. The other things that I will just remind you before we start, if you've got any questions related to either the topics that we're going to talk about today or anything completely random that you really want to know, please use the chat function, and we've got time at the end to pick up any questions, queries, anything at all. Please feel free to ask and we'll try and answer them. And just a reminder, please, to try and keep your microphones on mute, and I say to use the chat function if there's anything you want to raise. I will try and keep an eye on hands and stuff when we finish each section, and if there's any questions I can pick them up then. Super, thank you very much. So I think we're first going to go into the next slide, please, Kevin. So our topics today, a bit of a varied list for you today. So we've got Carrie and Elaine coming to talk and update you all on the Cambridge Cancer Research Hospital, which is starting to look very exciting. Michaela's then going to talk to us about a session on inclusion. And then I'm hopeful, I'm trying to keep an eye on who's arriving. I'm hopeful that we've got the team from Maggie's coming to talk to us about managing anxiety at work. And I will say there may be a little bit of audience participation coming up later, so be ready for that one. And then we've got a question and answer session at the end, and that should hopefully take us through to just before 12 o'clock. Super, thank you very much. We'll move on then to Carrie and Elaine.
Okay, thank you very much for having us again. Hopefully we'll be quite a regular feature, or obviously really keen to keep everyone updated as this project progresses, and it is progressing at quite a rapid pace at the moment. Yeah, you can move it on, Kevin, thank you. We've just entered a new phase of the design, and for since last Monday, we've had our architectural team back on board, helping us to look again at some of the physical spaces in the new build. So this is really important because it is our final chance to look at the spaces. And the first stage of this is reconfirming our floor plan designs. Now, many of you have been involved in this over the last couple of years, and particularly in the last couple of months. So thank you very much for your input. We're starting to see the conclusions of that now. Although, having said that, we still do have quite a few difficult decisions to make about the building, and particularly around the ground floor configuration. We know we need to make a lot more space for kitchen facilities, and therefore we've got some trade-offs to make in terms of what we can fit. So that's definitely a conversation for the moment, which we haven't yet concluded. Equally, still some things to iron out around pharmacy provision, and we know that we would like to change some of the way that our inpatient bedrooms, particularly on the bone marrow transplant ward, how their infection control measures work, and that might have some implications as well, which we're also working through. And a number of you have been involved in looking at how we make the outpatient procedure area in CCRH a bit more workable. So still some important things to iron out. And then once we've done the floor plan, well, I say not even once, because we're in a parallel process alongside that, we are starting to look at individual room designs. And again, thank you for those of you who have commented on those already. Elaine and I are bringing those to various groups to get our various colleagues to engage in, as well as our patients. So lots to do at the moment on quite a tight time frame. Alongside that, we're also doing a piece of work where we've got to do quite a lot of detailed calculations around articulating the benefits that we expect this hospital to see, because that is what is really going to support this business case in making the final steps to make sure it does get approved. But it's on a very positive trajectory at the moment. I thought I'd show you some of the most recent images that the architects have put together. So you can see this is a view of the campus where the new building has been superimposed into the view. So this is looking as if you're looking into Cambridge. So it's a shot above Royal Papworth and AstraZeneca, looking down. You can see the treatment centre, and then CCRH just next to the treatment centre. Yeah, thank you very much, Karen. And then the next photo shows just a view from the street. So this is as if you were walking up Robinson Way. So you can see AstraZeneca on the left there, and then just the corner of the ATC on the right by that dog. So you can see what a potentially big building it is. It makes it all seem quite real, see pictures like this. And then the final photo just shows a little bit more of the front end. So this is as if you were standing outside the ATC, looking across the road to what will be the new building, and the main entrance way in. So hopefully that makes it feel a little bit more real. I've just included a slide around the timeframes just to remind you. And really the key things coming up alongside this phase of design that we are currently in, working with the architects, is that there will be another planning application in the autumn to support that. And then we are looking into the stages of getting actual building contractors involved with the aim that the physical building will start towards the end of 2023. And then clearly we'll be in a different phase again of this project. So a lot of activity going on at the moment, and thank you all for your continued engagement in it. It's so important, and we really value all the time and contributions you are able to make. And on that note, so just to finish on the next slide, is we've got a couple of staff reference group meetings coming up where we are focusing on staff spaces, so particularly staff rooms and changing rooms, lockers. And it would be really good to have input from anyone really who works in the Directorate, and particularly people who are likely to work in this building. We've got a chance to think about what the architects have put forward, and we're very keen to get people's thoughts on that, both in a practical sense, but also, particularly in the second session, around the look and feel of these rooms. What do we want these spaces to be like? So that would be really helpful if anyone from your wider teams could get involved. We would much appreciate that. And then we've got a couple of weeks coming up in July, which will be where we talk to our architects a bit more about some of the specifics and some of those. We're just finalising the times for those, but many of you will be invited to those sessions. That was all I was going to say today. Elaine and I unfortunately do have to go back to another meeting, so I'm very happy if, well, Claire, we can do questions now, or you can perhaps send questions to us later.
Thank you, Carrie. I was just going to ask one, which is how do people get to those two meetings that are on our screen now? Is there a Zoom dial-in details, or is something going out?
Do you send these slides round?
We share the recording on our Connect page.
Okay, there is a link. I think we
Carrie, we can send them as part of the weekly update if you want.
Oh, okay, yes, that'd be great.
Yeah.
If you send it to me, I'll include it in the update this week.
Thank you very much.
Super, that's a good job. Has anyone got any questions for Carrie? I can't see any hands or anything, so please don't be polite, just shout up. No, super. I think that means you get away lightly, Carrie. Thank you very much. It's certainly, I mean, to me, seeing the actual rooms now, even if it isn't a little drawing, is a really, really exciting stage. So I don't think I ever thought we were going to get here, so it's brilliant. But like you say, a lot of work still to do.
Lovely. Thank you very much.
Thank you very, very much.
Thank you.
Let them disappear. Lovely. Thank you very much. I'm going to hand us over now to Michaela, who hopefully most of you will know, to talk about inclusion. Michaela.
Okay, thank you. So my name is Michaela Marley, for people who don't know, and I'm a Cancer QA Manager. My presentation is on inclusion. So I'll start with a brief overview of what inclusion means, and then I will further go through to explaining about a little bit more about disability, one of our minority groups. So the first slide has two definitions of what inclusion is: the action or state of including or being included within a group or structure, and also the practical policy of providing equal access to opportunities and resources for people who might otherwise be excluded or marginalised. So there are examples of these groups can be based on physical or mental disabilities. Other minority groups can be members of the LGBTQ plus community, differences in sexual orientation, gender, religion, race. But essentially within the workplace, inclusion is about how it feels to work. It's an act. It goes beyond just being a good person. It requires us to consciously and actively be inclusive and embrace the differences of other people's lived experiences. And it's a vital part of human life to feel included. I'm sure there's many times we've all felt that we've been left out or made to feel different. And that can lead us to feel unappreciated within our work teams or in our own life experience. So when we do get inclusion right, evidence shows that individuals and teams perform more effectively, we think more creatively, we think more openly, and the shared experiences help us solve problems and make better decisions, which leads to better well-being, increases better retention, there's lower rates of sickness, and ultimately provides a more positive patient care experience for our service delivery. Next slide, please. So to be able to foster this idea of inclusion, we need to have allies. So what are allies? So allyship is something anyone and everyone can do. You don't just have to have the word diversity or inclusion in your job title to do it. And you also don't have to be a member of a particular minority group to become an ally. Being an ally means listening to other people's experiences and stand together to improve our work experience and our work processes. So we are not just inclusive in a tick box approach. Next slide, please. So how can we be inclusive? So these are 3 examples of how we can be more inclusive. Number 1, sharing unwritten rules with new team members. So every team or every group has its own way of working, how they get things done, and will have certain nuances of how it works. So when a new member starts, it's helpful to share those insider tips so they can navigate the workplace and support them and understand how the team works so they can integrate quickly and work more effectively. Second improvement is to think about the impact and not the intent. So it may be that we intentionally hurt someone with what we say in the workplace and say something without thinking that offends. And it may be that's not what we intended. But in terms of inclusion, we need to consider that impact. So I'm just going to read a quote from Miranda Brianna Epler from her book about how to become an ally. She says, the worst harm from a microaggression can come from denying someone else's harmful experience by centering on your own intent. Trust people's unique experiences. Use your curiosity to build compassionate empathy. Really work to understand what they are going through, not what you are going through or what you imagine you would go through in a similar situation. What matters is what they are going through and what you will do about it as an ally. So it's about the intent. The next improvement is to learn how to pronounce someone's name, which sounds like an everyday thing we would probably do, but sometimes we don't pronounce people's names properly or mispronounce them. And it's a very simple thing to just ask, how do I pronounce your name to get it right? Because some people can feel a little aggrieved by not being addressed appropriately. And the last one on the slide is about dead naming. And what is that? Well, if a member of staff is going through transition, be that from female to male or male to female, they would have had a dead name, and their dead name is the name that they were assigned at birth, and they will choose to have a different name whilst they transition, and it's respectful to call them by that name and not their dead name. Next slide, please. And there are further actions within the workplace that we can do to improve our inclusion. First of all, asking questions that help people find strength. I mean by that, we've had a lot going on with the COVID pandemic, to say the least, and we're still playing catch up with that. So consider offering people specific forms of help instead of saying, is there anything I can do? Perhaps, can I cover that meeting for you, or can I do that task for you? And push back on unconscious demotions. So what is an unconscious demotion? A person from an underrepresented group has their credentials called into question, and it amounts to an unconscious demotion, the unthinking habit of assuming that someone holds a lower position of status or expertise than they actually do. We can also consider disrupting inflating language. So inflating language is where someone describes perfectly appropriate behaviour in a way that it seems inappropriate or threatening. So, for example, I may disagree with someone in a meeting and I may be branded aggressive, or perhaps someone who doesn't smile at their desk can be deemed aggressive or moody, and maybe it's that they just don't smile. Next slide, please. So the following phrases actually demonstrate certain biases, and these are phrases, I've just put some examples up, that we should challenge. So for example, the first one, I don't see them prove that they can handle the promotion. Essentially, even though they already have demonstrated and have the experience and responsibility already in their application. Or I don't want to lower the bar. What does that mean? Is that already implying some prejudice? Or can you take notes? Asked from the only woman that's in the meeting room. I've had that early on in my career. Or I'm not racist, sexist or homophobic, but insert derogatory comment. Or I've never seen harassment in the workplace, so I don't think it can happen, and yet it's been reported and it's actually going on. We need to ask follow-up questions about these things. Or I'm sure they didn't mean to offend. That may be the case, but again, as previously mentioned, we need to focus on the actual root of that and ask follow-up questions and not focus on their intent. Next slide, please. So, as I said in the introduction, I would then focus on one of the minority groups, and in this instance, I'm going to focus on disability. So, what is disability? What is its definition? So, under the Equality Act, disability is a condition that affects an individual's ability to carry out day-to-day tasks and can last over 12 months or more. It can be physical, it could be a mental health condition, and those can be visible or invisible. Next slide, please. So, disabilities. Did you know that heart disease, cancer, HIV, stroke, and all the others listed there are classed as disabilities? I personally didn't know quite a few of those. I didn't realise that depression and anxiety were classed as a disability. I certainly didn't realise cancer was classed as a disability. I was also unaware that 93% of people with a disability don't have a wheelchair and don't use one. 83% acquire disability actually during their working age. And within the trust, 17% of our CUH colleagues tell us that they have a disability or health condition. Next slide, please. So, what can we do? Well, what we can do is talk openly about minorities and disabilities within our staff meetings and other forums, encourage open conversations about these subjects, ask questions where you may feel a little silly to ask those questions, or a little stupid to say, this sounds silly, but, and make the conversation less taboo, and involve our staff from all different backgrounds in decision making and improving and challenging attitudes. We can also create and update processes and policies to make appropriate adjustments to support members of minority groups, and also tackle the negative behaviour that inversely impacts how we are meant to treat people within the trust. CUH is committed to being together, safe, kind and excellent, and we do need to speak up if the behaviour is not appropriate. Actions do speak louder than words, and we should support our minority groups. And my final slide is a closing statement, which is a quote from Peter Molyneux, who works within integrating health and social care, who says, "Inclusion has to be who we are. It's a way of being and not a project." So it's not just something we do on an awareness week or ticking a box to wave a flag. We need to have this conversation consistently to ensure that we are inclusive as a workforce. Thank you. That's the end of my presentation.
Thank you, Michaela. That was fantastic and certainly very helpful for me. Hopefully it is for others as well. Has anyone got any questions for Michaela? There must be some. Oh, come on, people. I think for me, I will share my experience in that I've always feared that if I don't know something, or if I'm not sure how to talk to somebody, what questions to ask, there's a fear of asking because you think you might offend somebody. And it's, how do you have that conversation? How do you start? I've shared, those of you that know me will know I'm a foster carer in my personal life, and I can always remember being told that I was racist at a fostering training course when I said that I wouldn't know how to care for somebody of a different race or religion. You know, I don't understand how to care for Afro hair, things like that. I would need teaching, and I could always remember being told that that was being racist. And I thought, but I'm asking for help and to be educated. And it certainly has always caused me that fear of, by asking for help or for that information, that you will be deemed a certain way. And I guess it's just how you do it, isn't it? And how you involve others and ask for that help. But would encourage people to ask and just to think about words that you use, who's in your team, how you talk to people, and just say, just check yourselves and make sure that, yeah, you are using the right terminology. And if you need help on things, there's loads of training courses and literature and all sorts of stuff out there, isn't there, to read on things.
There's a lot on DOT. We have equally, we have some simple resources. I'm actually going to ask Kevin to put in the weekly update. Within a Word document, you can actually get the document to speak to you. So if people are having problems understanding language, interpreting it, equally on Zoom conversations, you can actually get the subtitles. So people who are audio impaired, or if English isn't their first language, so you can understand pronunciations. And equally, if you're a minute taker, it's great to have those words visually seen. So I'll put them in if that's all right, Kevin. It's actually little tricks that really do help people understand things.
And it's things like that, isn't it, that you only hear about once you've probably struggled on for a few months and not really known what you're doing. And then, so that's really fantastic. Thank you very much. And I guess I will, sorry, Michaela, I'm going to offer your services. If anybody thinks that a chat from Michaela or someone from sort of the wider trust would be really helpful for your teams, people will quite happily come and talk to your individual teams, and have a bit of a smaller session so you can ask those questions that either you've never dared ask or you don't know how to ask. For those of you that know Michaela will know that she won't mind being asked at all.
Oh no.
Please, please go for it. Super, thank you very, very much, Michaela. It's really helpful. So I'm hoping we can move on. I'm desperately searching through the names on my list. Have we got the teams from Maggie's here yet? Nobody's shouting at me. We might have to do a little bit of filling. I'd said 11:30 to them, so we're a little bit early. Has anyone got any? There's no questions or anything in the chat. Kevin, should we do the couple of questions that we've already been sent?
So one of them is kind of, I'm summarising this, but what's the current take on masks, lateral flow testing?
Are we back to COVID?
Yes, unfortunately, because it is increasing. So what is the current take on what we do and do not to do?
So I think, most of you may know that obviously COVID is still out there. Although I think it's gone from the news and it's gone from most of the headlines now, it is still there, it is still around. The number of inpatients at CUH has increased slightly in the last week or two. And I think most of you will know of people within your own teams or within your working areas that have got COVID in the last couple of weeks. So it is back, or it never went away, but the numbers are just starting to increase slightly. So officially, obviously at CUH, you do not have to wear a mask unless you are working in the high risk areas. So particularly with our clinically vulnerable patients in oncology, radiotherapy, haematology. I would say just be sensible and do what's right for you. If you come into the hospital site, I came in last week and wore a mask, and the amount of people who said to me, why are you wearing a mask? Well, because I want to, and that's okay. And I think it's just, you say, really thinking about what's right for you and your families. If you want to wear a mask, it's absolutely fine. If you're quite glad to be rid of it when you're walking down the corridor or sitting at your desk, then equally that's fine as well. Just check on, obviously, your colleagues, your neighbours, whoever you sit near, and make sure that they're comfortable as well. I think in a couple of areas within the Directorate, we have asked people to go back to wearing masks at their desk, just because we've had a few people who've contracted COVID, and to try and stop it spreading, we've asked people to do that. So you may get asked that on occasion, but I think it's, yeah, just do what's right for you, and please be confident in that decision. I'm going on holiday in a couple of weeks and really don't want to have that cancelled because I've got COVID before I go, so I will be back to wearing a mask and trying to avoid it when I'm on site. And I think in terms of testing, I think we'll circulate something on Wednesday in the bulletin that comes out, but you should still be, if you're on site, testing twice a week, I think it is, isn't it, with lateral flow tests, and you should still be able to get hold of those as members of staff. So just please make sure you're being sensible. Any symptoms, obviously, just please be testing, and let's try and keep it out of our working environments, and particularly away from our patients as well.
And that lateral flow testing twice a week is anybody. It's not just clinical staff. That is anybody.
And everybody, say, should still be able to get their lateral flow tests from the government website. So you just put on there that, yes, you're an NHS worker and you should still be able to get them for free. So please make sure you're doing those, and say it hasn't gone away, unfortunately. So if that answers that question.
Yeah.
Do you want to save the rest? I can see that Anish from Maggie's has joined us.
Yeah, I'll come back to the other one later.
We'll come back to those. Super, we'll pick those up later. Anish, welcome. Thank you very much for joining us.
No problem.
I think Kevin's hopefully going to share and drive for you. Do you want to introduce yourself, and I'll let you go for it?
Thanks for letting me join and talk to you all. My name is Nish. I'm a psychologist based at the Maggie Centre in Cambridge. I've been here for about 6 years now. It's flown by. And part of my role here at Maggie's in Cambridge is working with anxiety. I have been doing presentations to people recently about managing anxiety at work. And actually I did a couple last year when people were returning to work. So what I thought I'd do today is I've just adapted it and reduced the slides a bit, just to make sure I'm not boring you all or and fitting it into the next half an hour. But what I thought I'd do today is just go through some of the principles of how to hopefully give you some tips on managing anxiety, and then at the end just go through a brief breathing mindfulness exercise as well for the last 10 minutes, if that sounds okay. I
have warned everybody that there may be some audience participation coming up, so we're ready for you.
Yeah, it's completely optional. Yeah, see how you feel, if you know. Yeah, absolutely. So it shouldn't take too long at all, and hopefully you may feel just that little bit more relaxed. But yeah, so is it okay if we go to the next slide, if that's okay? Okay, so the way we like to describe anxiety, particularly in the kind of area where we work in, is what we call the 3-circle model. I'm going to start in a red circle, which is the threat system. We've probably all heard of that. It's also known as the old brain, the lizard brain, the cave person brain. It's based in the amygdala, near the base of the brain. And we have 2 of these almond-like structures near the base of the brain. And for example, I am in this room. If somebody started smashing on the window with a hammer, I'm either going to want to run away, stay still or hide, or fight them. And what happens with the threat system is it shuts down what we call the medial prefrontal cortex, the part of the brain which makes us who we are, where we're able to problem solve, plan, imagine, be creative, all the things which are important in our roles, really. But the things that can slowly activate our threat system are working with uncertainty, when we're having to kind of listen to the, building relationships with our patients, and then knowing that the difficulties they're going through, sometimes the loss we experience, all these things in our setting can activate the threat system, and it can be quite we don't always realize how activated our threat system can be. We can get habituated to it quite easily. We don't realize how stressed we are until we kind of start behaving in ways that we wouldn't normally do. Or and I've worked in the NHS before here, and in this role, sometimes when I'm busy, we just don't have that space. We're constantly going, and we need our threat system down to keep us going, because we secrete adrenaline and cortisol, and it can be a vicious cycle. We need this to keep going, but then we can't do our jobs as effectively. We're not feeling ourselves. We're tense, and then we need our threat system even more. So that's the threat system, and it's a very physical system. It provides, it gives us some very powerful feelings, really. So tension, muscle tension, our breathing rate increases. It doesn't want us to ignore the threat system. It's constantly there, and if there's no easy solution, to which there isn't always when we're stressed at work, how do we just simply do less work or have breaks? It's not always so easy, and we become an autopilot, and we have these uncomfortable feelings, and sometimes what happens, we distract ourselves using the drive excitement system. So this is based in part of the brain we call the nucleus accumbens, which is our reward center. And so if you do, buy something nice or achieve a work goal or something like that, it gives us that buzz. We secrete dopamine, which is that it helps us feel excited. And I can be guilty of this. I have my phone next to me, so sometimes when I'm feeling a bit overwhelmed, my autopilot suddenly takes me to looking at things at my lunch break about things to buy, or all sorts. It's completely normal, but it's unsustainable, because we can yo-yo between the threat system and drive excitement system, and distraction works. It always works, but it's short term. And what I'm hoping to talk to you or promote is what we call the soothing contentment system. So this is based in the medial prefrontal cortex, which is this is the part of the brain which makes us who we are, where we're able to feel grounded, feel ourselves, be self-compassionate to ourselves and compassionate towards others. An example of this is, I don't know, when we're able to go on holidays and you're just relaxing in the sun and your body feels heavy, you don't feel a care in the world. Or for those of you who have pets, when you're stroking your cat or dog, or cuddles with loved ones, it's this sense of being rather than doing, and we secrete endorphins and oxytocin, help us feel calm, help us, and when our soothing contentment system's activated, our threat system can't be activated. The threat system is sympathetic nervous system, soothing contentment system is parasympathetic. So in terms of very basic stress management, if we can activate the soothing contentment system, that's really helpful for us. Easier said than done, but I'm just going to go through a couple of ways we can try and do that. Kevin, is it okay if we move slide to the next one? Great. So this is I really like this slide. It's actually the firefight and an American firefighters charity, but it's a really nice, simple way of helping us understand when our threat systems are activated. like I said, we don't always know we're doing it. And in a workplace, particularly when there's underlying stress, we're very rarely thriving. That's the ideal. But this is where we feel calm, able to take things in our stride, take feedback, focus. More often than not, we're often in the surviving mode, and we don't even realize we're doing it. It just becomes normal, where we're feeling nervous. We can feel more easily overwhelmed or irritated. It makes change more difficult. Our sleep can be affected, and there can be muscle tension and headaches. And struggling, the orange bit is where we feel more fear, panic, exhaustion. We are more able to understand when we're in this level. We can affect our performance because the part of the brain we need to perform well is shutting down because we're in the survival mode, the threat system. Self-medicating with substances, food. Here at Maggie's, we can have a lot of cake sometimes around, and that's my one. I've always known when I just to distract when we're feeling stressed, which is completely normal. In crisis is quite rare, but and obviously more clearly, it can be aware. But when you're suffering from panic attacks, and that's where your threat system is really high, nightmares, intrusive thoughts, etc. Is it okay if we move on to the next slide? And I don't know if these have been passed, but everyone's more than I hope you can have a copy of these slides afterwards to have a look through. So I'm just going to give a very brief rundown of the strategies that we can use, the coping strategies. Dropping anchor is a really simple one, and again, I'll send this to Claire afterwards. It's one you can use at your desk, where it's literally you're just trying to be in the here and now. So you're just noticing your feet on the floor, the sounds in your environment, what's around your computer screen. And it's a really good first step to trying to reduce that threat system by just being aware of what's going on. As humans, we don't like being in physical. We're designed to move away from physical pain, but also emotional pain. But what can happen is, if we're feeling uncomfortable, we our autopilot almost, we end up distracting ourselves. And the first step is just being aware of what's going on. And dropping anchor is a really good way of doing that. Breathing exercise, I'm going to go through an example in just a few minutes time. Deep muscle relaxation is really simple. It's where you just kind of tense and relax different parts of your muscles. A lot of these things are used in yoga and Pilates. So if you're part, and the research shows they activate your soothing contentment system. Nature's a really good way. It's a very simple way. It activates your soothing contentment system, particularly if you're somewhere new, or if you're able. So, if you're able to take some time to go to some greenery in a way, we know it secretes endorphins, oxytocin, helps us feel safe and calm. Mindfulness, I know it's a bit of a buzzword. I'm very biased because I've got a teacher qualification in mindfulness, and I use it a lot here at Maggie's. I'm going to do a little bit with you, hopefully, in a few minutes' time. The environment can make a big difference. Here at Maggie's, part of what we try and do is make the environment as calm as possible. I know prior to Maggie's, working in hospitals and clinical settings, it's not always conducive to your emotional well-being. The lights, the noise, the distractions, and that can activate your threat system through no fault of your own. This is a difficult one. When our threat systems can mean we put this mask on, so we are not, we just keep on going. It's our autopilot, and part of reducing the threat system, increasing blood flow through prefrontal cortex, is just acknowledging how you're feeling. And curiosity. I'm just trying to remember the context of this, but I think it's just being aware of, again, that awareness of how you're feeling what's going on, because that's another step moving away from autopilot. Autopilot is when you're, for example, if you're driving, have you ever reached a destination, you can't even remember like what happened during that journey? That's because we're often thinking about things. When our threat systems are activated, we just do this autopilot where, and it can take quite a bit to step out of that. Is it okay if we move to the next slide quickly? So what I've done here is I've just given a couple of examples of being assertive. So when our threat systems are active, the evidence base, the research shows that we're more likely not to communicate how we're feeling. It's the fight, flight, or freeze, and the flight is just not talking, just trying to get on with things, and it's a vicious circle. The longer we keep it, the longer it can take to actually talk to somebody. And also the opposite of that is the fight. So we're holding it in, and then when we do say something, it can come across as a tone that we didn't intend, because it's all bottled up. And is it okay if we move to the next slide? Thank you. So these are just some, I won't dwell on this, I'll let you read it afterwards, but these are just some examples of trying to be assertive, and saying no is the big one when we need to, which is so much easier said than done. And when our threat is active, it can be more that we can end up taking on more than we want to, because saying no becomes more difficult. Is it okay if we go to the next slide? What I'll do is I'll leave this link with you. I won't click on it right now, but it's just looking at ways we can feel connected to others, or or helping listening to others when they're going through difficulties. You probably know all this already, so I'll just leave that for now and let you kind of click on it in your own time. Next slide. Okay, these are just some good practice guidelines. So trying to be flexible where you can, because autopilot means that sometimes we can feel that we just need to keep on going. But if we're able to be flexible for ourselves or others, taking a step back when we need to, or if you're struggling opening up, that can be really important and easier said than done when you're so busy. If you take anything from this is the soothing contentment system, part of the self-compassion is putting your needs first. And even if that's as simple as taking a walk in the fresh air where you can, that can make a much bigger difference than you realize. Because it can reduce that threat system activation. And if you think about that autopilot, that things can just keep building and building. And the next slide, if that's okay. Okay, so that's it. So thank you. That was a bit of a rush, but I just wanted to go through the main points, and it's almost like my selling point for going through this exercise. It's good that I can see more people now. That's so it's completely up to you if you want to go through this or not. But what I was hoping to do is just go through some mindful breathing. It should take 10 minutes, and it's one of the ways we use a lot here at Maggie's to activate the soothing contentment system. It's one I use a lot when I'm feeling a bit overwhelmed or stressed. So yeah, if you want to give it a go, and if you want a sense of privacy, do feel free to switch off your cameras and microphones just to feel. And if also, if you do feel comfortable, I just want you to just settle into a comfortable position. It's best if you close your eyes doing this, but if you're not comfortable, just keep your eyes open, that's fine too. And what I'm going to ask you to do now is just settling into a comfortable position. And now just bringing your awareness to the level of physical sensations by focusing your awareness on the sensations of touch and pressure, where your feet make contact with the floor and your body makes contact with the chair. Just spending a few moments exploring these sensations. And now focusing your awareness on the changing patterns of physical sensations as the breath moves in and out of the body. So we're just noticing the breathing, not doing anything with it. So you may notice it in your nose, your mouth, throat, chest, your lower abdomen, or a combination of areas. It really doesn't matter. Just following the breath all the way in as it enters your body in the in-breath, and all the way out as it leaves your body in the out-breath. Perhaps noticing the slight pauses between one in-breath and the following out-breath, and between one out-breath and the following in-breath. There is no need to try to control your breathing in any way. Just simply let the breath breathe itself as best you can. Also bring this attitude of allowing to the rest of your experience. There is nothing to be fixed, no particular state to be achieved. Simply allowing your experience to be your experience, whatever that may be. Sooner or later, usually sooner, your mind will wander away from the focus on the breath and the body to thinking, planning, daydreaming, drifting along, whatever. This is perfectly okay. It's simply what minds do. It's not a mistake or a failure. You notice that your awareness is no longer on the breath. Just gently acknowledge where it's wandered to. Then really gently bring your awareness back to the changing physical sensations of the in-breath or the out-breath, whichever you find. No matter how often you notice that your mind has wandered. And this will quite likely happen over and over again. Just gently acknowledge where your mind has wandered to. And again, just really gently bring your awareness back to the changing physical sensations of the in-breath or the out-breath, whichever you find. You may find that mind's wandering to work problems or things that you need to do. It's completely normal. Just acknowledging it just for now, and then really gently bring it back to the body. As best you can, just bring a quality of kindness to awareness. Perhaps in repeated wanderings of the mind, it's opportunities to bring patience, gentle curiosity to experience. Just continue with the practice for a few moments longer. Perhaps reminding yourself from time to time that the intention is simply to be aware of your experience in each moment as best you can. using the breath as an anchor, just gently reconnecting with the here and now. Each time you notice that your mind has wandered, it's no longer focused on the breath and the body. It's a really simple practice. You can use at your desk, so if you're feeling overwhelmed or just want some space, just acknowledging where your mind has been, and then really gently bring your awareness to the in-breath or the out-breath. Noticing your feet on the floor, body on your chair. I'm just going to be coming to the end of the exercise, so just being aware of the sounds in your environment. And whenever you feel ready, and only when you feel ready, just gently opening your eyes. Okay, I can see people coming back. So thanks everybody, and thanks for giving that a try. And I hope there's a few take-home messages to help. And if you've got any questions, do feel free to email me.
Thank you, Anish. That was fantastic.
Okay,
Set me up for the day now. I feel calmer already.
Great.
Thank you very much. I think we've done some fantastic work with Maggie's, well, I was going to say over the last year, but even before that. So it's great to have you all there for us as well as our patients. Thank you very much.
Okay, no problem.
Super, thank you. Right, sorry to waken you all up now and bring you back to reality. Has anyone got any more questions that we want to ask? Anything else come through, Kevin?
No, and now I've got to remember what the questions were.
Anisha's done a good job on us. There you go.
So the only one I've got is about Christmas parties and ACT social funding.
Christmas in June. Oh gosh. I guess it is a good time, isn't it?
Now, it'll be done.
It will. Everybody will be no doubt thinking about planning Christmas parties. I think some teams historically have used some ACT funding to support decreased costs for Christmas parties, things like that. ACT are doing something possibly slightly different this year. So I would just say, please do not presume that you will have the usual level of ACT funding for your Christmas parties. I don't think ACT have made a decision yet on what they are and aren't doing. So watch this space. And of course, as soon as we know, we will let you know. But just an early heads up, hopefully, is, yeah, please do not presume that there will be that same level of ACT funding. They will absolutely do something to support staff. It might just be something slightly different to what they normally do, I think is the message. But yes, please plan your Christmas parties. Hopefully we'll be able to have them this year. Yeah, fingers crossed. Has anybody got any other questions in the last minute or so? Please shout up. If not, I hope that was helpful for you, and there's been a couple of things today that you can use throughout your day, your week, and into the future. Thank you very much. If anyone's got anything they want to do at these sessions or any topics they want us to cover again, please let us know. Otherwise you'll get whatever's in my brain, I'm afraid. But please give me some suggestions. Thank you all for everything that you do, and the fact that you keep going, you keep turning up and prioritising our patients, which is fantastic. Have a good rest of the day. Enjoy the sunshine, hopefully this week, and I will see you next time. Thank you. Bye.